Ladies and gentlemen, members, I think it's time now, 3 minutes past 10, so should we get started? I would like to begin by welcoming those members of the public and press who have joined us today for this meeting of the Highways and Transport Committee. The County Council allows filming and photography at its public meetings, so please feel free to take pictures and tweet during the meeting. Can I ask, though, that everyone present turns their mobile phones to silent or vibrate while the meeting is taking place? Please be aware that the meeting will be live streamed and the recording of the meeting will be available to view on the County Council's website. There is no fire alarm scheduled for today, so if the alarm does sound, please leave the building by the nearest fire exit and assemble at the rear of the building by the lunch area. Before we begin, I would like to invite the committee to join me in a minute's silence for Her Majesty the Queen, who passed away last week. Thank you. Also, please do note there is a book of condolences down in the reception area for those that wish to add their thoughts and memories. Let's begin. Item 1 is apologies for absence and declarations of interest. Would the Democratic Services Manager please report any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillor Peter MacDonald and Councillor Lucy Netzinger is substituting for him. Councillor Derek Giles and Councillor Taylor is substituting for him. Councillor Jan French and Councillor Mark Howell is substituting for her. And finally, Councillor Mandy Smith and Councillor Hay is substituting for her.
Thank you very much. Does any member wish to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests or non-statutory disclosable interests? No? Brilliant. Okay, we're being asked to approve the minutes of the Highways and Transport Committee meeting on the 12th of July 2022. That was a very large agenda as an accurate record. Does any member not agree with that or have any items they want to bring up? I give you. Councillor King.
I'm going to start in the way that I'm going to continue, Chair, but this is a question about the Wisbech Access Steering Group that I raised, and only Councillors Tierney and Hoy were listed as members, and I should have been listed, and I didn't see anything in the minutes reflecting that correction. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King.
I believe it's added at the end of the minutes. You have been added to the steering group.
I missed that. Sorry, Chair. Thank you very much, Daniel.
Thank you. Any other clarifications on the minutes? Okay, on that basis, members, happy to approve the minutes as written subject to the change. Again, I would ask anyone who objects to raise their hand now. No? Okay. On that basis, I recommend to approve the minutes carried. Okay, we are being asked to note the updated action log. Members, you have in front of you a further updated action log, a copy of which has been placed on the website. Can I ask members if they have any questions on the action log's content? No, brilliant. Okay, item 3 is petitions and public questions. We have received none. Brilliant. Okay, item 4, cracking on with this very quickly. Item 4 is the report for cashless parking solutions. Philip Hammer, the Parking Operations Manager, will introduce this report. Philip is
Thank you very much,
on Zoom. Thank you, Philip. Over to you.
Can you hear me fine? Hope so.
Yes, perfect.
Thank you, councillors. We are looking for authority to begin a procurement for cashless parking solution, and hopefully we're recommending that you delegate authority to the Director of Highways and Transport in consultation with the Chair and Vice Chair of the Highways and Transport Committee to appoint contractors following a full, competitive and complete procurement procedure. Summarise, I do hope not to take too much of your time. Cashless parking is a critical part of the service we provide. Pre-pandemic, it was bringing in something like 70% of our income for on-street charges. I hope that I put a full summary of ensuring that people who come and visit Cambridge can actually use alternative cash providers. We are hopeful that we will have the top two in this next procurement, which cover essentially 90% of the market, which means that people can rely on an app they've already chosen rather than going for multiple choices. Financially, this is a very good option for us. It reduces many costs for us in regards to cash collection and so on. Most of the costs being met by the providers because they make a substantial profit from reminder texts and other convenience charges. So I hope that's a basic summary for you. I think the paper is a bit more substantial, but if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to take them.
Thank you, Philip. Members, we will now move to any questions and the debate. I propose we do both together because it's quite a short item. Does anybody want to start me off with any questions or comments on the paper? Councillor Sharp.
I'll start, Chairman. Just very briefly. I mean, this is obviously something that saves money for the council because obviously using cash and everything else adds lots of costs onto us. So it does seem something that we need to do. I mean, I use the I've got the Ringo app on my phone and it works very, very well. I don't pay for the reminder text, I must admit, but yeah, as a system that I think, yeah, it's good value for money. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Councillor Coutts.
Just really to support the proposal here and say that the multi-vendor approach is a good one. I'm sure we've all been frustrated by visiting a strange town and finding the app they're using isn't the one you've got and your theatre is about to start and you're fiddling around trying to download an app. So yes, a multi-vendor approach is good.
Thank you, Councillor Coutts. Yes, I would echo that, having had exactly that situation in London this weekend where trying to figure out which app works with which one. That's brilliant. Anybody else? Councillor King.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm not sure if it's possible for this to be answered at this stage, but it's worth asking. And it's about the rollout of CPE. And obviously, people are going to incur fines when they don't park appropriately. Will we be able to use this system for people to pay their fines in other parts of the county?
Would you like, I could answer this to some degree. I have been involved with the introduction of CPE. I'm just aware that I'm having a bit of a connectivity problem. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you at the moment.
Good. Right. Working with South Cambs, obviously we're working directly with South Cambs and we will be rolling out the service we do in the Cambridge. So all of the areas we kind of provide in the city will extend to South Cambs. So multi-vendor options will be there. Generally, the payment of a penalty charge notice isn't via the cashless payment option. It's done by website and other processes and payment systems. So that's not kind of directly linked in with this, but all other processes will be met. Speaking to colleagues, Fenland are obviously in a very kind of different situation. They're running an operation themselves and they're still ongoing on deciding their process. Huntingdonshire already have a cashless provider, which is already built in their parking system.
Philip, I think we're losing you there.
Process payments.
Do you want to turn off your video for a second?
Sure.
See if that helps.
Hello, can you hear me still?
Yes, we can.
Right. Did my response come through, or is it? Would you like me to repeat?
I think we got most of it. Thank you. Unless Councillor King has a follow-up he wants to ask.
We just missed the Fenland bit, which obviously is particularly interesting.
Do you want to continue with the Fenland bit then?
We're still ongoing with discussion with Fenland. Essentially, Fenland are looking at their own operation. We will offer any support, and if they want us to extend this into the area, we will consider it. we're more than open to supporting the other districts. But I can't give any definitive comment on that at the moment.
That's a very helpful clarification. Thank you, Chair.
Brilliant. Also, just for your benefit, Councillor King, I believe we have a paper coming on CPE to the next committee meeting, which hopefully will answer a lot more of the questions. Councillor Taylor.
Sorry, you just spoke about Huntingdonshire and the connection. When would you just clarify that, please?
Not dissimilar to Fenland. Essentially, they have their own system. They all have a cashless system in place provided by Chipside. So I understand they'll be continuing with that in their area when they introduced decriminalised parking.
Brilliant. Thank you. I think we've got Councillor Mills next. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Just in case anybody in South Cambs is concerned, we don't have any car charged parking in South Cambs for this to be appropriate for.
Brilliant. Thank you for that clarification. Any other members have any comments to be made on this one? Brilliant. I mean, personally, I think this is really brilliant for us to have a multi-vendor cashless parking solution. This does touch all of our lives on a fairly regular basis, and anything we can do to ease the pain of that is really good. So just to summarise here, the committee is being asked to authorise Cambridgeshire County Council to commence the procurement of the cashless parking solution for a term of 2 years from April 2023, with an option is to extend up to 2 years, and to delegate the authority to the Director of Highways and Transport in consultation with the Chair and Vice Chair of the Highways and Transport Committee to appoint contractors following a competitive process and to complete all necessary contractual documents in accordance with council procedures. Can I take that by affirmation? I don't see anybody shaking hands. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Let's move on to item number 5 then on the agenda. This is good. Item 5 is the Highways Asset Management System replacement. To take us through this report, we have Sue Proctor, Director of Highways and Transport, John Munslow, Director of Highways Maintenance, and Chris Stromberg, Head of Business and Digital Systems. So over to you, Sue.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. This report presents our proposed approach for the procurement of a replacement asset management system for highways, which would replace the now outdated Insight system that we have in place. A new system will enable the highway service to meet the needs of our members, our residents, our contractors and our partners, as well as the service itself, to work more effectively. I think we all appreciate that for the effective and efficient management of highway services now, it's necessary for us to manage a large and broad range of information and data, and to be able to access that data effectively and timely. The Insight system no longer provides us with functionality or capability to meet our needs, and it's creating inefficiencies and difficulties in us providing effective and timely responses to members, partners and customers, as well as accessing information for service needs. The proposal is that we go out to tender in October, in October this year, to procure a supplier, hopefully by January in 23, with an implementation process taking place through 23-24. So we would start with some elements of the system coming online almost straight away, and then building that up through the year. The requirements of the specification of the system to be procured are obviously very critical in this process, and the steps taken to ensure that we've captured the needs of our customers as well as the service are outlined within section 3.4 and 3.5 of the report. This has included a member workshop for highways and transport management members of the committee, which was held on the 21st of July. And the resulting proposed specification is outlined in Appendix 1. We've also tried to provide an indicative cost for the new system based on the investigations of the market at the moment, but the detail of this will come forward through the procurement itself. So I wasn't going to go into any more detail of the report, but happy to take questions.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I think we all understand how important this is for the county and how much it touches all of our residents' lives, our lives as members, and obviously all of officers in their daily working. But let's move to the questions and the debate. So would anybody like to start me off? Councillor G.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning. I was pleased to see this report come forward. When I joined the council, when I was getting in towards 18 months ago, I haven't got a local highways officer in my patch, and I've been begging and borrowing throughout the whole period. One of the things I'm rather hoping this is going to do, I accept the fact that obtaining staff is difficult, will actually mean that the people that we've got can actually get more done more efficiently. So it should be the fact that mean fit jobs can get done quicker rather than multiple tasking, etc. Will that actually assist with the fact that we possibly won't need so many highways staff as such, because this system will have been more efficient, and rather than, as I read it at the moment, everyone thinks on Insight you report it and something happens. What actually happens is it gets printed off and put in a basket and literally passed from pillar to post. So can you confirm that the system that we're looking at will hopefully be as efficient as to I report it ends up on the desk of the man who's actually going to fill the hole in, or whatever else we reported, and secondly, that will actually hopefully free up the space that we may or may not need to replace all the officer vacancies we've got at the moment. Thank you.
I could just say yes, but I'll go into a little bit more detail. So yes, the intent is that the system will take some of that transactional pressure off our officers and allow our officers to do the things that they actually need to be doing. So accessing information is something that is a little frustrating for everybody concerned with it at the moment. So having an effective system to manage that information and to have a lot more self-serve for both members, for the public and for officers using the system is going to really help us.
Thank you. I would also echo that. I don't think we need less staff. If anything, I think we need more staff. But yes, being more efficient is also incredibly important. I think I've got Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. I certainly do agree this will bring around a whole efficient way of working for the officers. However, there always is a however, will our residents see the process of their reporting? One concern I have is timescales. So when asking a local highways officer when a job will commence, the answer often is they just do not know. You know, the contractor is not giving them this information. The residents, my residents, see no action taking place. So as far as they're concerned, the job isn't actually going to commence. I am unable to tell them because the officer can't tell me. So there's a massive breakdown in communication between our contractors, our local highways officers, ourselves as councillors, and then our residents. Will this system, obviously, if we haven't got the information there, how can we put this into the system?
I think a lot of the time it's accessing the information in a timely way. At the moment, we have our Insight system, which does what it was bought to do at the time that it was purchased, but it doesn't respond to those needs that we have now. And the interplay between that system and our contractors system isn't as good as it could be. So the development of this system to interplay with our contractors will enable us to get that information in a much more timely way. But it also allows us to feed information into our programme management system. So we'll be able to access what that programme of delivery is much more easily.
Thank you. I think I've got Councillor Maguire next.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm personally content that the specification will be right as far, you know, the officers will have worked out the specification, and this sort of system evolves anyway, and it is time to review this. My only concern over this is that in looking at this type of system, that we're very careful to build in the redundancy, and I think that is partly talked about in this thing, in the sense that we'll have a backup system, systems going wrong, but to ensure that in any contract that any upgrades that are also costed in, so that we're not suddenly finding ourselves way behind and as systems evolve. So this is one of our problems with contracts. And I personally, and I've had in my bonnet for many, many years, is that we don't pay for software maintenance. Software maintenance, to me, there's no such thing. Software is either right or it's wrong. So if it goes wrong, it's because it was badly designed in the first place, and we shouldn't have to pay for that. But that's just a personal hope that we would include such a thing. But I just want to say that generally, I support this type of thing. It must be fit for purpose. Hopefully it's built in with the future also in mind. But I would also hope that if it's possible, I get the sense that we're talking about an off-the-shelf item, even though there's several potential suppliers. But it'd be nice to think that we were able to build on the experience of another authority who's actually used something and can actually say that this works well, rather than be the pioneers. You know, it's great to be a pioneer, but sometimes you find yourself lagging behind the others. So that's the only comment I make. So otherwise, I look forward to seeing this system working, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Sue, do you want to come back in?
I can come back in. Oh, I'm out. Yes, I'm back in. I can come back in just to give you the reassurance that yes, so we are procuring this as a system as a service rather than a piece of kit. So that will be kept updated. So the cloud hosting will enable us to update that as and when it's required. But also going to the market, there is a lot of off the shelf, well proven technologies now that are there and systems that are there. And actually within our service, we have a lot of experience of other systems that other councils are using, but that will be part of our procurement process as well.
John's going to say that yes, it is.
Yeah, the short answer is yes. That we will be looking at that and building that in as we I suppose we set a specification, but we'll be developing what that actually turns out to be for us in the provision of the system, and those links to other council systems, contractor systems, and partner systems will be a key part of what we're looking to make sure we get in the end product.
I'm happy to hear that. Thank you.
No, it is incredibly important to have those APIs for future extensibility. Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. Few points really. I'd like to thank John Munslow for the workshop presentation, which I thought was very useful, and hopefully members feel the same. I think there's three key things which are all mentioned in, I think, 3.4. Then we need a better scheme for residents, because residents at the moment can report something, and as Councillor Taylor says, they don't know it just suddenly disappears. Members are in the same boat. We quite often get calls from residents who want to know what's happening, and the ability to be able to get some report out. And then obviously, probably in some ways, most importantly, making the highways team more efficient so they're able to do the job better and quicker. And yeah, whatever. I mean, touching on Councillor Taylor's point, as I understand it, we've got a 12-week contract with if a report is for, this is certainly what my LHO tells me, that if a fault is reported, then they've got a 12, we place the order with Milestone, and then they've got 12 weeks basically to do the work. I don't know how true that is. And then finally, touching on, I think, Councillor Maguire, and obviously it needs to be, or it will be, an off-the-shelf package by and large, because once you go off that and into bespoke, the software ramps up quite considerably. And having a brother who is a programmer for large banks and things like this, I know the costs that that can be incurred. So the more we can make it off the shelf. But I would imagine, touching on the software side of that, I would imagine any software maintenance will be part of maybe a maintenance package we agree with the supplier. I would hope anyway. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Can I go over to John Munsley?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think the information to members and residents and town and parish councils is going to be a sort of one of the key outputs we want from the system itself. So it's, as Sue said, the accessibility to information, using the information we've got, and making sure that we are sharing that widely where it's relevant for the public, etc. The system itself, I sort of see where we're not putting the information out or telling people what we're doing in a timely manner, that kind of creates within the service sort of a failure demand where we're having to answer a question that we could have avoided in the first place. And I think that the system there, I'm keen that it does produce the, or has the elements that then support that efficiency and effectiveness. And I think, ever so important is that timely information. You mentioned the 12-week turnaround on works. We have a varying levels of response time depending on the severity of a defect. So, if it's a safety defect, then we are timescales with Milestone are anywhere between sort of 2 hours if it's really dangerous to 24 hours if it's bad and we need to fix it soon, or sort of 3 days if it's causing people problems. And then that extends into 21 days and then into this 12 weeks. So it depends on the severity and the need to fix it to keep people safe and the assets in good condition. But the less severe works do go into programs that are up to 12 weeks. And I will make sure that we work closely with Milestone as we put the system in so that we can provide people with confidence in the timescales that we give them, that when we're going to do works. I think the last point was around the maintenance, and the maintenance of the system will be a core part of what we are discussing with potential suppliers and what we will be purchasing at the end of the day. We won't be going for a bespoke system. It will be very much off the shelf, but I think much like apps and computer systems we use, it will be configurable so that we can set it up so it operates in the best way to suit us. Thank you.
Councillor
Just
Sharp,
to come back very quickly. Thank you for that, John. And yes, obviously, if it's a real safety issue, then it's much quicker than 12 weeks. I know this may be difficult, or I think where it's a standard, I won't say a standard pothole for want of a better word, which is the 12 weeks, then it's trying to get as much information from Milestone that we can put on the system so residents and members can then relay that information. But I know that's easier said than done, but be grateful for that. Yeah, thank you.
No, I know that's incredibly important, making sure we get as much information to residents as quickly as possible. Councillor King.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to just echo Councillor Sharp's appreciation for the presentation at the workshop that John coordinated. It was very useful. I think that the biggest complaint that I get is lack of feedback. And we need to remember that we also work with partners like Anglian Water, for example. And it's important that we incorporate in some way the feedback on the complaints that are made by residents for the partners such as Anglian Water. So I'd like a reassurance that's going to be addressed. The other thing that is a great, according to my LHOs, is a considerable cause of delays is actually getting quotations. So it's not so much the work itself, it's getting the quotations from Milestone. So is that going to be reflected in this new system? And the final question is, in December, it says supplier presentations to members. Is that going to be all members or just the members of this committee? Thank you.
I'll take them in reverse order. So the presentations, I think we probably can make, some suggestions as who that membership would be, but we haven't made any decisions on that at the moment. I would suggest probably from H&T, maybe following up from the workshop, but happy to take guidance on what that would be, what that would look like. The crucial thing for us as officers is that we do get a system that is, satisfying all of our needs, and that includes our members' needs. So the opportunity to see a demonstration to understand it at that point might help influence that decision moving forward. On the milestone and the quotations, I think that's the similar discussion that we just had about the 12 weeks and putting works forward. I think the opportunity with the technologies that we would hopefully have with the new system is the implementation of mobile equipment as well. So we have much more ability to collect information on site and inform that costing process with Milestone much better. Some of the issues we have at the moment is that we don't always provide enough information for Milestone to actually provide the quote. So we need to get better at that provision of information, and the system will help us do that. I remember being a third part, but the question about Anglian Water and complaints, I'm not sure I quite understood that, sorry.
It seems to be a familiar problem, Sue, that when a road is resurfaced and there are Anglian Water manhole covers, their responsibility is to level off the manhole covers so that the road surface is smooth. And that is not happening in the way that it should. And when complaints are made, they're just referred to Anglian Water, and basically the LHOs don't know what Anglian Water's intervention levels are. So I keep getting these constant complaints about manhole covers that should have been fixed that haven't, that don't belong to us, but are Anglian Water. And there are numerous other examples. I mean, the other utilities are all guilty of this as well.
Yeah, so I think the system will help us to collect that information, but it's the processes that we put in place to actually use that information in an informed way to program our works more effectively, and to respond to those needs as they arise more effectively, whether it's our works that are required or Anglian Water. Obviously, when working with partners like Anglian Water, they will have their resource and programming issues as well. But if we are able to get information from them and post it through our system as well, so that the customer understands that, because basically the customer just wants it fixing, and we need to show that it is being addressed. Yeah.
Thank you. I think I've got Councillor Mills wanting to come back in again.
Just very briefly, in the same context, the work of County Broadband, we know, is causing great concern because there is very little coordination, or too frequently no coordination between County Broadband and their colleagues at LHO level, and we end up doing work in the wrong order, and they're digging up footpaths, for example, to lay cables just shortly after they've been resurfaced.
Yes, I share some of those concerns. Let's pick that up later, because I think that's a separate item, but yes, it's something that we need to be aware of throughout the county. I don't believe, Councillor Keats. Extremely quickly, just to pick up perhaps the number one thing that came out of that member workshop, is if please can the new system not say job completed when the job isn't completed, when that's all that's happened is we've looked at it and decided not to do it. Totally agree. I think Councillor Shayler wants to say a few words quickly as well.
Yeah, I could sort of sum up here that we need a system that interacts, is easy to interact with for our residents, is something that works for us as members and the officers. And this seems like a tall order, but this is what we're trying to look for, a system that satisfies all these needs. But we have to remember that we're not reinventing the wheel. This is a problem faced all over the country. But this is why we're going out to find a system that will satisfy our needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shayler. Well, I think that's, I don't think I've got any further questions or comments. I mean, I just want to say myself that I think the geek in me is very excited about this, because I think it really could revolutionize how we interact with the highway service, both as members of the public and as officers. I think this really could lead to a vastly improved service with all the things we've heard about, from communications and making sure that members of the public are highly aware of what's going on. So I think this is a very needed investment, and I am excited about what it can bring us. So just to say here that the committee is asked to agree the specification for a new highways asset management system as outlined within the report, recommend to Strategy and Resource Committee the approval of going to tender for the new highways asset management system, the cost of which is going to exceed £500,000 over the lifetime of the contract, and to recommend to Strategy and Resource Committee that it delegate the decision to award the contracts to the Director of Highways and Transport and Section 151 officer in consultation with the chair and vice chair of the Highways and Transport Committee. Can I take it by affirmation that we all agree there? Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's move on then. We're getting through this. Item 6 is a report on the Highways and Transport Committee KPI indicators, key performance indicators. I'd like to invite Rachel Hallam, Research Manager, to introduce the report. Over to you, Rachel.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. I wanted to start with a quick recap for committee members, as I appreciate it's been some time, as to the background to the paper I present today. Earlier this year in February, the Council adopted a new strategic framework and performance management framework. Under this new performance management framework, the role of policy and service committees in relation to performance management is set out. One of those roles is to select and approve additions to and removals of key performance indicators for committee performance reporting. Following on from a January paper for this committee, outlining the process for performance management going forward, a recommendation was made to review the previous list of indicators, and a workshop was subsequently held in April this year with members of this committee to discuss. This paper firstly summarises a proposal of the changes to that previous list of indicators for committee to discuss and agree today. If committee can review and confirm an initial agreed list of key performance indicators, officers will take these away for further development, and these will be presented moving forward in quarterly performance reports. The paper also contains a proposal for 8 of the indicators to combine and become strategic key performance indicators, which simply means they will also be presented to Strategy and Resources Committee for approval and to eventually form part of a wider corporate monitoring moving forward. Appendix 1 begins to provide an outlined draft set of this performance data, and this is for information purposes only for committee today. This allows members to see how this reporting might look moving forward. And so the committee are asked to review and confirm also the proposed strategic key performance indicators to be recommended for consideration to the Strategy and Resources Committee later this year.
Thank you, Rachel. We will now move to questions and the debate. Does anyone want to start me off? Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Chair. I was very concerned on reading this paper. On page 62, the indicators proposed to be removed. 3 of the indicators are about classified road conditions and narrowing the gap between Fenland and other areas of the county. And yet we're proposing to remove those. If anything, I've seen a worsening of the roads within Fenland rather than any narrowing of the gap. And I'm concerned by removing these, we won't keep a close eye to ensure that the gap is narrowed. Also, lower down on the same page, they're on about removing indicators 46, 148 and 151. And it goes on to say they will continue as operational KPIs. Perhaps you can explain to me the difference between a strategic KPI and an operational KPI.
Certainly. I'll start on the Fenland one, just briefly, if I may. And that is a good key performance indicator, should align with the strategic priorities of the council and the service committees. They should also be representative of the whole of the Cambridgeshire area, not just a particular area, unless there is a strategic direction of the council. This previous KPI going forward is not proposed to be removed at all, although I do understand we're doing some tidying up for audited purposes. And it will be picked up in the KPIs looking at the road conditions, which are indicators 39 through to 42. And actually what we can do is break that down at a committee level, but we would suggest that that would be an operational detail where we were looking more in depth at that road condition, and therefore that can be presented to committee as a report outside of the KPI reporting. And I know John has had to step out, but my understanding is the new system that the previous item discussed will make that easier. So we're not proposing to not look at that completely. What we're proposing is to have that strategic KPI, and that's why it is a strategic KPI for the road condition. And then underneath that, we can start as a committee to look operationally at any of those kind of specific outside of that report. On your second point, the difference between a strategic and an operational. A strategic very much aligns to the committee priorities and also the council's priorities, as your operational are your kind of day-to-day. And that's why a good example is that kind of street lighting indicator. We would consider very much an operational KPI, which is then picked up outside of the key performance indicators going forward on a more general basis in individual reports that are presented to committee. We're not suggesting that those cannot be come to committee at all. Hopefully that answers your question.
Brilliant, thank you. Let me just come in quickly there as well to say myself, some of the work that we've been doing with GAST and other asset management will let us actually look objectively about the difference in roads across the county. And I think personally that is the far more interesting part, and that we need to see whether Fenland's roads are actually in worse repair than other parts of the county. And if so, then obviously that will justify some extra resources there. But what we need to be doing is be objective about this and looking across the county rather than focusing on one particular area. We need the stats to be bearing that out, as it were. Councillor Nethsinger, did you want to come in?
You've probably answered most of what I was going to ask, which is, do we actually know whether the condition of the roads in different parts of the county is better or worse in some places than others? Because I'm aware that this has been a KPI for some time at this council, and that actually there has been significant investment in the roads in Fenland. And I'm curious to know whether that investment has had any impact on the overall quality of the road network across the various districts. I also think it's important for us to be looking at our road network in terms of use as well as just the classification of the roads. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nethsinger. I don't know whether Sue wants to come in on the actual condition.
I'm on and off, sorry. Just to support what Rachel was saying about looking at it county-wide and looking at our ABCs and unclassified roads will allow us to do that compare and contrast, to look at where our investment is needed moving forward, but also look at the impact that we're having through the investment that we've already made.
Yes, and I believe that the GAST work is helping us to be able to actually understand that across the county. I'm afraid I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, and unfortunately John has had to step out there, but I think it is vital that we understand those numbers. And the ABC red-green red, yellow, amber, green rating, I believe, is a national recommendation as well. Councillor Dupre, did you want to come in?
Yes, if I may, I've got some questions on some of the indicators. The first one is I'm slightly confused by the references to indicator 32, because at the bottom of page 59 and the top of page 60, there appear to be two different indicator 32s talking about different things. One is about sustainable transport mode usage changes and the other is growth in cycling. And I'm not sure whether that's intentional or whether one is a different indicator. So I'd appreciate clarification on that. On indicator 32, as it's presented in the 9-page appendix, which we're not discussing the performance today, as I understand it, just this is an example of what these would look like. Nonetheless, on page 69 for indicator 32, the one that relates to cycling, the way it's presented, you see the change this year, the change the following year, the change the year after. And yet what it's supposed to be measuring, if I'm reading the rubric correctly, is against a target of doubling cycling usage from a 2013 baseline. Well, lots of individual ups and downs don't really enable you to see whether you're reaching that target of doubling by 2025, I think it is. And I'm wondering whether we could look at the presentation of that, because if you can't see whether you're on a trajectory to reach where you need to reach, then that's rather problematic. That's my first one. And also, also on indicator 32, just wondering whether there was an intention, or sorry, whether we have information about that indicator district by district, because it's all very well saying, you know, there's more cycling in Cambridgeshire. If all of that more cycling is in Cambridge, then that doesn't really help. So I'm assuming that that sits underneath and that we see that somehow, or can see that somehow, but I'd appreciate reassurance on that. On indicator 32B on page 70, it's not clear whether there is a target there also to double, as there is with the cycling. That 32B is for walking. It's not clear to me whether there is a target there for doubling in the same way. And I'm also not clear whether this is measuring growth in numbers of journeys or growth in sort of percentage-wise or whatever, because is that just related to there being more people rather than any kind of attempt at investigating sort of modal shift or anything like that? 39 on the red, amber, green, it is just a snapshot, and I'm not sure how useful that is in measuring what we're doing. If it's just, you know, if all we can see is what's happened, what's the case at this point in time, rather than the direction of travel. But if there's good reason for that, I'm prepared to hear that argument. Indicator 146 on traffic coming into Cambridge, is the intention that the rubric says that is now being measured biannually because of COVID? Is the intention to measure that biannually going forward, or was that just a COVID thing that will pass when COVID passes? And finally, on 147, indicator 147 on page 75 about traffic in the market towns. I was slightly surprised, and I know we're not here to discuss the actual performance here, but I would just ask officers, that looks rather inconsistent with some of the data being presented in the Combined Authorities draft Local Transport and Connectivity Plan, which was talking about very considerable rises in, for example, Chatteris. So I didn't know whether that was something that a different way of measuring, or measuring something different, but just the lack of consistency with what I recall from the LTCP is a bit surprising.
Thank you. Well, I can answer some of those. I'm going to look to Rachel to start with, and then I might add to those if that's okay.
Yeah, I'll do my best to take them each in turn, and if I miss anything, Councillor Dupree, then let me know. Clarification on 32. Apologies, that's an error that I haven't spotted in the paper. It's a confusion between the bus indicator previous 30 and 32. I think we've also got slightly confused because we are keen to expand 32 so that it includes cycling and walking as well, and also looks more broadly at the active travel ambition. So apologies for that, and thank you for picking that up. I also agree on the targets and trends lines and the presentation of that, and we'll take that away. In the past, for today's purpose, we have removed some of those just to kind of keep it straightforward, but in the past we have included those lines and worked towards those. So we will take that away and look at that presentation, Lee. On the walking target, I'm not aware, and I'll look to officers. I know David is not with us today. I'm not aware there is, but we can take that away and certainly build that into the development as we start to look at these active travel KPIs going forward. Again, something we can take away is the development against that kind of relation against the growth in population. Is this something that that we're seeing is a base of some of the schemes we're putting in place, or whether it's actually to do with our census numbers, as we've seen rises there. We have started to look at those, and some of the suggestions in the list do start to look at some of these indicators by per 1,000 of the population. So again, as we're developing these, we'll look at that and whether that's appropriate. The indicators 39 to 42, again, that's a presentational. We wanted to ensure that in appendix there was that kind of recognition of what we will be looking at going forward, but that comes from a new form of measuring, and we talked about that GACE work that unfortunately John stepped out of the room for. But again, going forward, when we present that more fully, we'll bring out some of those kind of information from that. On the COVID point biannually, we did pick that up because we were monitoring the movements throughout COVID. I can confirm that in 2022 we will continue to do that biannually, and the hope is that we continue to do so. We've got it in our plan for next year as well, but whether we continue beyond that, I can take away and ask officers. And then just lastly on 147 market towns, I will go away and talk to the combined authority. The market town data, I believe they used for the LTP is the same data as we use, but I can take that away as a point and double check. So thank you. Hopefully that's answered everything.
Thank you. Councillor du Preez, do you want to come back in?
Yeah, I'll liaise with you separately. I'll go back to the LTCP just to make sure before you write to them, just to make sure that I've got that correct, but I'm pretty sure I have.
Thank you, Councillor du Preez. I think it's actually just useful. I'm hoping everyone here knows how we measure traffic, but it might be very quickly good to say that obviously the way that it works with market towns and Cambridge is that we have a cordon around the edge, and we count the number of traffic of different modes coming into the town. And in Cambridge, we also have the screen line along the River Cam, which counts the number of vehicles crossing that line. What this obviously hides, and is something that we probably do need to work on in the future, is within market towns, we don't measure people moving around. So particularly when you look at active travel, where people usually use it within a market town, it hides actually a lot of the figures there of people using it. So that is something we are aware of and that we do need to work on, as to how we measure this going forwards and make sure it does capture the full picture of how traffic changes. Going forward, so I think we've got Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 or 3 points. In terms of what Councillor Hay was saying about 40A, B and C, providing the information, I'm not so worried about, well, I'm worried obviously that we make sure all of the roads in the county are good for purpose, but the main point is making sure that the data is there. So if it's on a county-wide basis and the data is there for all of the districts, then that's fine from my point of view, because the important thing is getting the data so we can then act upon it accordingly. I'm touching on what you just mentioned, actually, really, and obviously the difficulty of capturing the data for more rural areas, and cycling and walking is obviously one of those where it's much easier to capture that data in the cities and the towns. So interested to see how we can capture that going forward, and obviously we do that on a we may take one day and then capture all that data and then extrapolate it and produce data from there. So because obviously and going on to transport and car movements in the city, certainly, obviously with some of the proposals that are coming forward, then the accuracy of that data becomes even more important, I think, so that decisions can be made. Because looking at, I think indicator 146, it just took one day, I think, from reading the notes to that indicator, and 145 was October 2020. So obviously those are nearly 2 years out of date now. So I think going forward, it's capturing the data. So the more data we can get, the better that we can make the correct decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. I totally agree. And actually, I believe the GCP has been doing some work with vivacity sensors, which essentially allow you to get live traffic information and data, which could be useful for us going forwards. I believe I've
coming back. Half my degree was in statistics, so things like that do interest me. But thank you. Yeah.
We have a number of geeks within the committee, and that is a good thing. Moving on, though, I think I've got Councillor King.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think it's very good that we're having a look at our KPIs, etc. However, it does seem to be very much a work in progress, because many of these indicators have a description near them of saying develop. So will a further report be coming to this committee once that work has been done? And when will that be? So that's the first question. The second point is that however worthy many of these KPIs are, they are actually pretty meaningless to the people that we serve, because my residents are concerned about how quickly we remedy defects. And I don't see anything in here that's going to give us that essential piece of information. That is what we're all about. It's about remedying defects in the most timely way possible. So I'd like to reassurance that that information is going to be captured. And just as an example about, which I think is something that definitely needs more work, customer complaints responded to within 10 days is going to be retained, but is going to develop to reflect across the service in a consistent way. What does that mean? So I think it's a lot of work to be done here. Thank you.
Let me hand over to Sue to answer our ways.
Yes, I'd absolutely agree with you, Councillor King. There is still a lot of work to be done on these. This is our opportunity that was created corporately to review all of our existing KPIs and to look at the environment that we wanted to create of the availability of effective and meaningful measures of our performance. We don't have all the information. We don't even have the mechanisms to collect all the information yet. But what we're trying to establish is that aspiration of what that suite of indicators will look like to enable us to move forward with their development. Until we understand what our KPIs need to be, we can't invest in their development. So this will allow us that opportunity to develop them moving forward. I don't think we'll have a single update that comes forward, because I don't think we'll be in a position where we've got we've done all of that. There you are. That's the answer. It will be an incremental process as we use new technology, apply lessons that have been learned from other authorities, for instance, and develop our indicators as we move forward. And I think looking to Rachel, that's probably a situation that we'll find across other committees as well, in that, challenging ourselves to provide that information moving forward is what we've tried to do in the development of these key KPIs. But also during the workshop with members to actually look at what members are wanting to see those KPIs, that's informed this process as well. I think there is a lot of aspiration there. There is a major swing towards recording more transport routes, more transport modes, So active travel has almost been an aside traditionally. Now it is a core centre of the information that we need to provide. We don't have the mechanisms to collect that other than in some locations, and we need to expand that across the county so that we get those patterns. And that will enable us to invest in those areas that we need to invest in.
Let me just come back, Chair. I think however worthy the aspiration is to gather more information, what we must avoid is that gathering information becomes a substitute for actually doing the work. And the key thing I come back to that we should be focusing on relentlessly is remedying defects in our network in the timeliest way possible. And I'm not seeing any KPI that's going to indicate to this committee or to our residents whether we're succeeding in that or not. Thank you.
Let me come back on that one. So while I understand your point, I actually think to our residents, the most important thing is having roads that are in a good condition. But fixing them is actually kind of the underlying part here. So the North Star KPI, which we have here, needs to be how many of our roads are in a good condition. That doesn't mean the point that you raised there of fixing it isn't important, but actually I think that's more important in this place and for us as a committee to be able to understand than it is for the overarching guiding light, which is we want our roads to be in a good condition. So I agree that the fixing things, all of those kind of underlying things are incredibly important, but I think they need to live underneath that North Star KPI of making sure the roads are as good as they can possibly be. Everything else is a means to an end to get to that point of the roads being as good as they possibly can be. So I do want to see some of those details, and I do think it is important that within the Highways and Transport Committee, we do see some of those details of how they're going, but I don't agree that that should be kind of the North Star KPI. The North Star KPI should be the condition of the roads, and the other sub-level KPIs or operational KPIs are actually really important for us to see. And I'm hoping we will see those going forwards. And I'm hoping John and the team will be bringing those to us as members of the committee. Does that answer? Thank you.
Reassures me to some extent, Chair.
Councillor Netzinger.
I'm sorry, Alex, I'm going to disagree with you. Because I'm afraid I think the most important thing about our road network is that it should be safe and that people should be able to use it. And that is not just about the condition of our roads, it's about the whole transport hierarchy and people being able to get safely and comfortably from one place to another. And I think it's very important that this committee does not just get obsessed with the condition of our roads, but it is a highways and transport committee. And I really want us to focus on the fact that this is not just about highways, it is also about transport. And I know that that's not what you were intending, but I just wanted to make that point before we move on.
Totally correct, Councillor Netzinger. Councillor Shayler.
Yeah, that dovetails perfectly into what a comment I wanted to make about Vision Zero. And again, this talks about, as Councillor Sharp, we need to know what those indicators are. We need the data. And I understand we shouldn't be just working for data. Sometimes, you end up looking at numbers. It's what's on the ground that counts. But a good example of that is with active transport. We don't have a very good way of looking at safety. People often get injured, they limp home, and we have no data, so we don't know about it. When a car touches another car, usually there's an insurance claim, there's a paper trail. So currently, it is very, very difficult to get a hold of data on real safety when it comes to cycling, walking, equestrian, other users of our network. So yes, Vision Zero.
Brilliant, thank you. I actually just want to come back in on what Councillor Netzinger said as well, because I think it's important to look through our KPIs as well, that while the condition is the ABC and that thing there, one of the KPIs we are looking to develop is a risk rating of the road network, which I think is incredibly important, and safety of the existing network for non-motorised users. So both of those are also North Star KPIs, as well as the condition of the road. So just to clarify that there. Does anybody else have anything they want to come in on here, or should we?
Chair, how can there be more than one North Star?
It depends on what galaxy we're in. Okay.
That'll be a binary.
We'll have many North Stars. I think that's fine. But hopefully members understand what I mean, that you need those kind of guiding KPIs, which is what we're looking at here. But also it's incredibly important to have the KPIs under those that go into those guiding KPIs. And those to us are actually also incredibly important. So if that's everything for the debate, let's move. So the committee is asked to agree the specification. Oh, hang on. No. The committee is asked to review and agree the proposed additionals to removals from the Highways and Transport Committee key performance indicator set and agree proposed strategic key performance indicators SKPIs for Strategy and Resource Committee, which will be coming there. Can I take that by affirmation or do we need to vote? All agreed? Brilliant. Okay. So the final item on today's agenda is the forward agenda plan and appointments. The Democratic Services Manager will take us through the agenda plan. Over to you, Dan Snowdon.
Thank you, Chair. The agenda plan, I just need to update you with a couple of alterations. Excuse me. Business planning is being added to October and December. Combined authority funding process has been added to December, together with a report on Camborne to Cambridge. Civil parking enforcement application and parking enforcement policy has been moved from December to March 2023.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the committee? Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. One point is, and I thought when we had my recollection with the spokes meeting, the changes to the LHI process, we're going to come to our October meeting. I noticed from the programme it's coming to December, which I would have thought is going to cause issues with the rollout of the applications for the next round of applications, because I believe we can't start that round until it's been formally agreed by this committee.
Thank you. Over to Sue.
Yeah, the intention is it's coming to October, so I think we just need to update Daniel with that. Sorry.
That was certainly my,
Yeah.
when we had the discussion a couple of weeks ago, that it was coming to October.
Yes.
And then obviously after the 4th of October meeting, we can then publish the application period
That's it.
for parish council.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
it will be coming to the October committee.
Councillor Sharp, I believe we have spokes later on this afternoon, and I think that is actually on the agenda for the meeting. So thank you very much. Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Chair. Just that point I think I caught at the end there about CPE being moved back until March. Does that delay the potential rollout that the district's currently working to? Or does it impact them? And if so, how, should I ask?
You're going to look to me and I don't know the answer, sorry. We'll have to come back with that as to what that programme is moving forward.
I believe that's actually in the December committee, on the committee plan at the end of this.
Didn't we just hear though that that's being moved back to March? That's the basis of my question. It's sort of it was snuck in there quite quickly at the end, might I add, but I'm sure I just heard Mr. Manzo say that.
You did, sorry. Yeah, CPE and the civil enforcement parking application and parking enforcement policy have been moved from from December to March 23.
Sorry, that's not what it says at the end of the committee pack.
Yeah, these are changes that have happened since publication of the agenda plan.
Okay, let's pick that up offline and look into that, because we do need to be aware of those. Thank you. I know we have a spokes meeting later on this afternoon, so we can go through that then with Councillor Sharp.
Come back, sorry.
Yes.
I think it's taking Councillor Fuller's point. I think it's important we pick up what the ramifications are for Fenland and South Cambridgeshire and Huntingdonshire from that. Yeah.
Agreed. Councillor King.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I've made this point before, and I do think there's some validity in combining the agenda plan with the action plan, because things do seem to get a bit lost in the action plan. And I'm thinking particularly of two items that just have in progress next to them and no indication of when they're going to be progressed. So I think we should give some thought to that. And I would also just like to ask if the item we discussed previously, the KPIs, is actually going to be coming back to us once it's been further developed, because there is a lot of work to be done on that.
So on the KPIs basis, I believe it will be coming back on a fairly regular basis as work is being done on it. Sue, do you want to talk about?
Yes, we have the action plan. There are a number of actions that are still in progress. We are moving those forward, and we try to keep members updated as to when that progress is being made. We have discussed previously the link between those actions and whether or not they prompt the forward agenda, and we've been doing some work with Chair and Vice Chair and spokes on that agenda planning in the longer term. So we will be picking those items up as we move forward. If there are particular issues, if you wanted to speak to me about them on those, that would be fine. But it's trying to move those agendas forward with agenda items, and the action log is about actions that come out of that. They don't always necessarily prompt an agenda item.
Agreed. And I believe, Councillor King, one of the ones you're concerned about is the NMU design guide. And I believe that will be coming to a committee soon. Anybody else have any comments?
Thank you, Chair.
Brilliant. In that case, then, I believe that concludes our business for today. Thank you to those members of the press and public who have joined us in person or watching the live stream. I now declare the meeting closed. Members, if you would like to take a short break, we will reconvene for a briefing on the work of the Highways Improvement Board after the break. And can I please remind everyone to be mindful of the fact there is a book of condolences for Her Majesty the Queen downstairs in the reception area. So please do